Everyone for joining tonight's webinar, Engaging Youth, Fighting Childhood Hunger, Making Food Drives More Meaningful and Effective. This is the last in a series of 3 webinars put on by YSA and Sodexo Foundation. We're very excited to have you here. Today, you'll hear from many YSA partners, grantees, and Sodexo Foundation, a YSA funder. Maria Rose Belding, co-author of Fighting for Food, a guide for high school food drives. Julia Chambers, marketing coordinator for the National Coalition for the Homeless. Will Lourcey, founder of Frogs, Friends Reaching Our Goals. Michael Mink, director of communications for YSA. Catherine Gerber, director of outreach, YSA, myself. And Lauren Brayer, program manager of Sodexo Foundation, will be speaking with you today. I'd like to introduce Lauren Brayer of Sodexo Foundation and allow her to talk to you more about Sodexo Foundation's work around stopping hunger, specifically childhood hunger. Lauren, I'm going to pass it along to you.
Great. Well, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thanks again, Catherine, for that introduction. So for those of you on the call tonight who are not familiar with Sodexo Foundation, let me just tell you a little bit about our work. And our foundation is actually dedicated to fighting childhood hunger, and a major part of our work is to engage youth in the fight against hunger as well. I have the pleasure of working with organizations like YSA, Youth Service America, on several youth engagement activities like this one. And I'm so excited to hear from Will and Maria tonight, who are both past recipients of our Stephen J. Brady Stop Hunger Scholarship, which actually recognizes students for their efforts in the fight against hunger in America. And we are actually accepting applications now until December 5th for next year's scholarship, but I'll let YSA talk a little bit more about that at the end of tonight's presentation. So on the webinar this evening, you'll be introduced to the issue of childhood hunger, and you'll learn really about the problem and solutions to fight the problem. You'll hear from some amazing anti-hunger leaders as they share their stories and introduce you to fun ways that you can get involved in your hometown and help your community. So I'd like to thank the entire YSA team for bringing this webinar to life and for helping to reach young audiences nationwide to make an impact on the issue. So please, everyone, enjoy the webinar, and I hope you will join us in the fight against hunger, and don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and Twitter too. Thank you. Catherine?
Thank you, Lauren.
Great, thanks.
Before we go to our first speaker, we wanted to share a little bit of background about the issue of childhood hunger in America. And these are some of the key facts from our great partner over at Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, who are really the leaders in the anti-hunger movement here in the United States. And as you can see, more than 16 million kids in America live in households that struggle to put food on the table. That's 1 out of every 5 kids in America. And half of all the people who use SNAP benefits, or what we're called food stamps, are kids. And so this issue is such a critical one, which is why we've been doing this series of webinars and why we're so proud of our partnership with Sodexo Foundation. Obviously, one of the key ways that people address hunger is by collecting food and food drives and giving them to food banks. And Feeding America, the network of food banks across the country, publishes these key statistics about their network of food banks. And you can see that 28% of people who receive food from food banks are under age 18. And you can see the things that families have to choose between and feeding their families. So between utilities and transportation and medical care and housing, obviously really hard choices that people have to make. And obviously food banks help that greatly. And especially now that we're in the week of Veterans Day, another interesting statistic of that 20% of Feeding America's households include a family member who has served in the military. And obviously so many of those are young as well, in that 18 to 25 age range. So an incredibly important strategy that we'll be talking about tonight of collecting food for this network of food banks across the country to help feed people.
Thank you, Mike. Next, I'd like to introduce Maria Rose Belding of Means Database and Fighting for Food, a guide to running successful food drives in high schools. And Maria Rose works with YSA to promote this resource, and we were very excited to have it on our website. And you can still find it there if you'd like to search for it. So now I'd like to pass the microphone over to Maria Rose. Maria?
Hi, hello everyone. As introduced so graciously, my name is Maria Rose, and I run something called the Means Database, which helps food shelves communicate about donations like from food drives. And what I'm here to talk about tonight, I got to help write Fighting for Food, a guide for high school food drives. This was written by myself and my best friend, Trevero McConey. If you see on the screen, there's a picture of me way back when I was a high school junior, and that other girl is Trevero. We both ran our food drives in our high schools, all through high school, and as we got to our senior year, we realized that other people were going to be running our food drives, and we wanted to make sure that they could be as successful as possible. And we went online to try to find something to leave behind for them, a best practices guideline, a booklet, something to tell them everything that we'd learned over 3 years of trial and error. And we couldn't find anything at all. And so we wrote it. And it ultimately became a 19-page full-color PDF. We wrote it, I myself did the principal writing, but we wrote it with the input of more than 50 different people. So everybody from students at big high schools and little high schools, public, private, rural, urban, teachers, food shelf proctors, principals, people at the top of nonprofit organizations. Basically, we wanted everybody's perspective on how to run a food drive, and that's what we built. It's been really awesome to see it grow. Youth Service America was the first organization to publish this. There have now been about 12 in total. We know it's in the hands of students in 30 states and 6 countries, and we know it, and then a sister version meant for youth groups has been distributed more than 1,000 times. So that's really awesome. And I'm going to move into kind of what's in the guidelines. So if we want to go to the next slide. Hopefully here, we'll get to go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. So the big thing that I want to hit home is if you want to make a difference, you have to be different. You know your high school, your middle school, your hometown better than anybody else. I can't tell you what the perfect strategy is for your town because I don't live there, but you do. You know what motivates your peers. There are some high schools where it made total sense to pit the freshmen up against the seniors because you were going to get great results. There are other high schools where 2 different sports teams, the cross-country team and the football team, have a huge rivalry, and so you put them up against each other. You have high schools where taking the teachers up against the students is a good idea. That's just one of many variables that impacts how you can be the most helpful and the most successful. The thing, the Sesame Street homage here, this was not a high school, but it's a concept that high schools have pulled off successfully. That's all food. The artist behind this did a really great job, so you can't tell it right away, but that's actually baby food. And what they did was took a whole bunch of donated goods and built a sculpture out of it. They built some construction out of cans, and that creates a really cool visual for people around you to see just how much food you're donating and just how much good you're doing. So that's one strategy, and kind of a cool competitive strategy with that is get all the food and then break up into teams, especially if you've got a small high school or a small group or a small club. Break up into teams and have a competition to see who can build the best of these trophies, or not trophies, the best of these constructions. Another thing I really want to hit home, and I know later in the webinar there's a list of good foods to bring. What I really, really want to press is that you don't go in thinking you know what people need, because you might not. There are some food shelves that really, really, really need macaroni and cheese, and there are other food shelves, like my food shelf in my hometown, we don't want macaroni and cheese because we have way, way too much of it. It depends. And one month they could need macaroni and cheese, and then next month they have way too much of it. It changes a lot. So if you want to be the most helpful, go to your local food shelf or food pantry or soup kitchen and ask them what they need, and then work from there. Another thing too, as you can see in the picture, the center picture of all of the goods, sometimes it's more than just food, too. That was actually Torero's high school, her senior year, and they found out that their food pantry was really doing okay for food, but they really, really needed help with winter supplies, and they really, really needed help with household goods because their families that they serve are not only struggling to pay for food, they're struggling to pay for some of those other necessities too. So go in with an open mind, find your local emergency feeding system, which is the big fancy term for a food shelf or a food pantry, and ask them what they need and how you can help. Another thing with that too is they absolutely love that attitude, that you can go in and say, hey, what do you need? And if you come in with that attitude, they're going to be thrilled to work with you. I think if you could go to the next slide. Okay, so to get involved, you can download the guide, YSA.org/fighting_for_food, or if you just Google Fighting for Food, a guide for high school food drives, it'll come up. You can download it absolutely for free. There's no money attached, just to get it out to students like you that we know want to make a difference. Go ahead and if you're ready, run your drive. There's another thing I wanted to talk about too with timing. There's a phrase myself and my staff at Meads have started to use when it comes to food drives, ABC, anything but Christmas. We see a lot of holiday food drives. A lot of times people will do stuff for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, which is great, but the thing is there are a lot of other people that are doing things for Christmas or for Thanksgiving. And sometimes when food shelves really, really need you is toward the end of spring and early summer, or right at the start of the school year, or even February or March. So that's another good question to ask when you find that person that's running your food shelf. Ask them what they need and when they need it. And also, in a small town like mine, it's kind of easy to figure out where your food shelf is because there's really only one. If you're in a bigger place, just go to Google. Also, Feeding America has a really, really big network of all of these food shelves and food banks. Just check out feedingamerica.org and you should definitely be able to find it. So that's pretty much the highlight version of the guide for food drives. There's a whole lot more in there. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter at Miss Maria Rose, or you can email me, and I forgot to put this on here, my apologies. You can email me at maria.belding@gmail.com. That's pretty much all I've got. I'm excited to hear your questions and to hear everyone else speak. Thank you so much, Youth Service America and Sodexo, two organizations near and dear to my heart. I appreciate the chance to talk, and I'm excited to hear what everybody else has to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria Rose. And to remind everybody online, you can add your questions to the chat box in the right-hand toolbox of GoToWebinar on the right-hand side of your screen. And so please enter your questions for Maria, and we will answer those at the end of the webinar. Also, if you would like to hear more from Maria, you should listen to her funny and informative speech at the Sodexo Foundation annual dinner that honored Maria as a 2014 Stephen J. Brady Stop Hunger Scholar. At the end of the webinar, and in the follow-up to the webinar, we will give you the links to the Fighting for Food guide, as well as the link to the video that I just mentioned. But be sure to check it out. It's fantastic. I'm now going to pass it over to Mike again.
Thanks, Catherine. Between our speakers this evening, we'd like to share some stories of our grantees and our partners that have done creative things around food drives, and some additional resources as well. And the first set of stories that we want to share is around collecting healthier food. And there's a couple of good examples in this area. The first is that several of our Sodexo Foundation grantees over the years here at YSA have held multicultural food drives. And they've really looked at what the populations in their communities typically make for meals and collected that type of food. One of the first grantees that we ever supported was a youth-led community organization in Minneapolis. And because they have a large percentage of Somalian refugees, that none of the food that they collected in the upper Midwest was part of their typical diet, and so they didn't know how to prepare the food that they were getting from the food drive, and it wasn't fitting with their culture. And so the kids took that on as the issue and made a point of collecting culturally relevant food in their neighborhood for their food drive. Another great partner is Super Food Drive, and they're focused on collecting superfood or brain food, and this is the really healthier food that you can get. And you'll see a list of the types of healthy non-perishable food items that you can collect and donate to hold a Super Food Drive. And if you go to their website, superfooddrive.org, you'll find resources for food banks and food pantries, for organizations working with youth, and for youth to host a healthy food drive. And it gives you all of the resources and how to specifically collect these types of healthy foods. So definitely check that out. And as a secondary resource, and Maria referenced this earlier, a list of some of the other things that food banks need besides canned food. And as Maria mentioned, this type of a list may change from food bank to food bank and from community to community, so definitely do check with your local food bank of the items that they're most in need of. But these are some of the things that people may not think about collecting and donating as part of food drives, but they really need on average. And of course, the big dollar sign there is to remind people that food banks actually appreciate money more than they do food. Of course, food is important, but food banks can buy things a lot cheaper than we can to donate, and then they can buy exactly the food items that they need. So pretty much every food bank in the world will tell you they'd rather have $1 than a can of food. So just think about that. Don't be afraid to collect monetary donations as part of your food drive as you collect food.
Great, thank you, Mike. I'm now very happy to introduce Julia Chambers of the National Coalition for the Homeless. We partner with NCH on the National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week campaign, which is coming up November 15th to the 23rd. And I'm very excited that Julia can share all the information about the week with you. Julia?
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I know there's a lot of information coming at you, but it's really good, so I'm just going to try to reiterate a few points that I've heard and that we've learned from our years doing National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. So this is just a really huge endeavor that community groups and students take on every year to bring fresh conversations about poverty to a community that will be motivated to create solutions. So this year we have over 750 events taking place across the country over the days between now and Thanksgiving. A lot of them are food drives, blanket drives, clothing drives, winter product drives, hygiene drives. People see that as a really easy go-to way to help out around the holidays. But like I said, it's really important to think about it throughout the year. So we really encourage people to get involved now, start planning now, and then maybe execute a little later. But get their community interested while everyone's talking about hunger and homelessness during this week. This year is a little unique because we've asked groups to focus on youth homelessness during their activities and shed light on a vulnerable and often overlooked population. There is only one shelter bed available for every 125 young people who are living without a home in America. There are homeless students in just about every school in America this year and every other year. And just too many young people are lacking in stability in their housing situations and even more face food insecurity. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about is hunger is not this classic idea that we always think of people living without a home and just starving, but food insecurity is this much, much bigger problem that affects way more people than you might think. It means that you don't know how you will get your next meal. And this can happen for a lot of reasons. It might be because you have to make these hard choices between paying your rent and staying in a house or putting enough food on the table to feed your whole family. You might not get SNAP benefits because you have a past criminal record. You may also just live in a place, a food desert, where there's no affordable grocery store within any reasonable distance from your home, so you just can't get there often enough to get the food that you need. But whatever the reason is, these challenges create a really unique opportunity for us to think outside of the box when it comes to traditional food kitchens that might be overwhelmed by holiday do-gooders and coming up with alternative ways to distribute food that we might collect around the holiday season when those places might be overwhelmed. So I encourage you to think about ways to transport donated materials to areas where there are no healthy, affordable options for residents. Mobile grocery stores are popping up slowly, but they aren't lucrative enough to become dependable long-term solutions for grocery stores. So if you can think of a way to bring the individuals and volunteers to these areas, you can make a huge impact. And another new trend is for students to create food pantries in their schools where other students can go and get free food to take home for the weekends and after school when they can't get the reduced price meals that they depend on so much to get their nutrition during the week. So that's something that's been happening a lot. But to Maria's point earlier, I say just ask questions. Always ask questions. No matter where you plan to distribute the products you obtain, it is crucial to check with other people and groups that will be involved and make sure that you are supporting them in the best way possible. Assumptions are just not your friend. Asking food pantries, shelters, and individuals what they want and need will reduce waste and increase the efficacy of your food drive. And remember that people don't always know what they want, but they generally know what they don't like. So present some ideas, give them ideas before you move forward and start collecting things and putting in too much work. Run a bunch of ideas by them, ask them what products they need, and if they don't know, suggest a bunch of things. See what you can think of that you can attain easily and make sure that is something that they would want. And then once you all agree, start reaching out to try to make the greatest impact. Talk to your participants and make sure they're going to be willing to continue participating in the long run. Like I said, draw them in during an event like Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week where there's lots of attention, people want to be doing good, and making them feel loyal to your program so that they continue helping throughout the year. So those are just kind of our perspective here. If you want to be more involved in National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, it does start on Saturday. We have a thunderclap, which I would really appreciate if all of you would go join at that link. It's a social media campaign where if enough people sign up, one message will go out on social media everywhere in an effort to start getting National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week trending. If you want to participate or host your own food drive, you can register it at our website and we'll help promote it and get people interested in it. Or if you want to go to our website and look at what drives are already happening, you can kind of get a sense of how they're going and how they're working and volunteer for this one in order to prep for your own. And just talk about it on social media. Get people aware of the fact that there are all these events happening across the country. People are giving back and people care that it's not the norm, hunger and homelessness. We can't just accept it. We can do something about it. So thank you all so much. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about getting more involved, and I'll pass it on before I talk too much.
Thank you very much. The next service story before our next speaker is about a gentleman named Zach Bonner, who founded the Little Red Wagon Foundation when he was incredibly young after a hurricane in Florida and started collecting food for homeless people that he saw after the hurricane, and has since then literally walked across the country to raise awareness around hunger and homelessness. And you'll see a couple of his high-profile projects that he's done to collect food. Last spring, around Global Youth Service Day, in spring 2013, he led a project called Zach in a Box, where he literally lived in a box in a park in his community for, I think, 48 hours. And had people make donations and collected food. So you can see him inside the box and just at the very beginning of the drive with the stack of food behind him. And then his most recent project, which was just last week, was he held a Food for a Million world record-breaking event, where his goal was to break the Guinness World Record for the most amount of food collected in a 24-hour period. Which, if you're curious, is just under 600,000 pounds of food, and was previously held by a high school that had run a project. And he took this on in his community to break that record with his foundation. And so you can see some of the pictures of him collecting that 600,000 pounds of food and making some TV appearances, and even got a red wagon vehicle to help promote the event. And the good news is he did break the record in the 24 hours. So Zach Bonner and the Little Red Wagon Foundation is the new record holder for the most amount of food collected in a 24-hour period. And it all goes to the local food banks in his area. And while I'm sure that he is incredibly proud of holding that record, I'm sure he'd also be plenty happy if any of you decided to take on and break his record and take that top spot away from him by holding an even bigger food drive.
So thank you again, Julia. And if anyone has any questions for Julia, please enter them on the right-hand side. Or if you have questions about the stories that Mike has talked about, please enter the questions there on the right-hand side of your screen as well. Next up is Will Lourcey of Frogs, Friends Reaching Our Goals. And Will is a YSA grantee and also a 2014 Stephen J. Brady Stop Hunger Scholar. And so he's going to talk a little bit about making food drives fun. Will, go ahead and take it away.
Hello everyone, this is Will Lourcey coming live from Fort Worth, Texas. I'm going to give you an overview of frogs and ideas for making food drives fun. I founded Frogs when I was 7 years old. I saw a man on a street corner holding a sign that said, "Need a meal." It made me satisfied, and I knew I had to do something about it. I gathered friends and formed a group whose mission is to inspire and mobilize youth to make positive change. Our goal is to provide meals and end hunger in our community by engaging youth in fun events. How do we do this? Well, our motto is having fun while helping others. That's exactly what we do. We design fun activities that will get kids involved and interested in service. Giving back is rewarding. We just need to give kids an opportunity to get involved and a chance to see how much fun it can be. So, my suggestions on how to make food drives fun. Use the interest of friends to excite and engage. A lot of my friends are interested in baseball, so I designed a food drive centered around that. We hold a food drive at our local Little League ballpark. Another thing, create healthy competition. Kids love competing against each other, trust me. We had competition between baseball teams. The team which donated the most pounds of food was named the MVPs of hunger fighting and won an end-of-season party at main event. You can create competition in almost any setting. At my school, they have elementary, middle, and high schools compete. At my brother's school, they have each homeroom compete. Rewards can be anything from a free dress day to an ice cream social or free pizza or anything. Everyone loves to be a winner. So, creating a winner's food drive builds excitement. And in the end, we are all winners because we are feeding those who are hungry. You need to be where the people are. This summer, I co-chaired my neighborhood food drive. All the city's neighborhoods competed during the summer. We held fun events throughout the summer months to get people involved. We had an ice cream social. Neighbors brought canned food items and received a frosty treat from the ice cream truck. Kids love ice cream trucks, and when they heard the music, they went nuts to attend the event. We also set up donation stations at the neighborhood 4th of July parade. It was awesome because there were a ton of people already going to be there, and it made it easy for them to donate the cans. Invite celebrities to support causes. I've learned that to get local celebrities involved, people get really excited to be part of the event. Contact the city leaders like the mayor, city council members, school board members to participate. Also, you can contact colleges and universities in your town. Kids love meeting college athletes. And don't forget local mascots from schools and colleges. VIPs will get kids involved, attention to your cause, and create fun. I've learned a lot through running food drives, but the biggest thing I've learned is that kids are willing to participate if they think it's going to be fun. Contact your local food bank to see what their needs are. You can go to feedingamerica.org and plug in your zip code. Excite friends by building a campaign around their interests. see a need, make a plan, gather friends, and change the world. For more info, you can follow us on Twitter @FortWorthFrog and also on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. And again, if people have questions, you can go ahead and type those in the chat box, and our speakers will answer as we go along. Our final set of stories before our last speaker are other examples of where projects have been around the interests of young people and have really focused on that fun element that Will spoke about. And you'll see lots of examples here of where they've organized a carnival, where participation was a donation of food called the Hunger Games, not the movie kind, an actual Hunger Games. You'll see one where they held a basketball tournament, again, where they collected food as part of the entry and the activities that they did as part of that, called Hoops for Hunger. One where they did a Top Chef competition, where they collected canned food and then had sports teams compete around who could make the best meal out of some of the donated food. And that was part of an education class where they were also teaching families about affordable and healthy and high-quality meals that they can make with food from food drives and from food banks. There's an example of a drama cast, of a cast of a play who wore their costumes to go trick-or-treating for food in the costumes that they were wearing for their play. So and they actually also offered discounted admission to the play if people donated a can of food. And then you'll also see another example of a construction project, and this is one of the ideas that Maria talked about at the very beginning, where people collect and donate the food, but have a little bit of fun in trying to construct fun things out of the donated cans. So you can clearly see a lot of different fun ideas where it's not just putting out a box to collect a bunch of cans, in a school or in a community center, but really made it a community activity and had fun while doing it. Another partner that we would like to highlight is Move for Hunger, and Catherine is going to talk a little bit about their work.
Absolutely. Move for Hunger is a YSA national partner, and they started out actually as a moving company that wanted to make a bigger difference. And so they collect, or they gather moving company trucks and actually transport food from food drives directly to food banks, where it can be more easily distributed out to people. And they work with schools, they work with kids directly, and we highly recommend them as an organization that people should reach out to if they're having trouble with some of their transportation. They also run really fun challenges, and they have a lot of materials to do that. And they send you all the boxes, flyers, and even a moving truck to deliver all the donations to your local food bank. So they do all the heavy lifting, and it makes your food drive much, much easier to run. And so definitely look into their work, and you can find out more about them at moveforhunger.org.
And before we start talking about opportunities on Move for Hunger, back on the previous slide, you'll see the Hunger Games. If you look really closely at their food boxes, you'll see the Move for Hunger logo. They actually use Move for Hunger to support their project.
Great. So now we want to open it up to questions and see if anyone has any questions for Maria Rose on the expertise that she's collected for the guide, or for Julia about how to bring food to homeless populations and address homelessness during Hunger and Homelessness Week next week, or for Will about how to make food drives really fun. And we have one question for Maria. Maria, what have you heard from nonprofit professionals about their issues that they come across when either organizing food drives or maybe collecting food?
Something, we hear kind of two different things on that. We hear a lot about the anything but Christmas. We hear a lot about kind of struggling with either having way too much or not enough. We also hear a lot about the quality of food that they get. And I really appreciated how well this was touched upon by some of the other panelists. Unfortunately, sometimes when people are donating to food drives, they kind of forget that it's going to other people. If it's expired and it's old and it's gross and you don't want to eat it, nobody else wants to eat it either. And that can be really frustrating for us. My second year, so my sophomore year of high school, running our food drive, we threw out almost 300 pounds of expired food that people had donated to us. We had about 2,000 that was good and was great and we were able to give it to them, but that was 300 pounds of food that everybody had to sort through and carry and drag out to the trash because people either thought it was okay to donate food like that or they just didn't look at the date. So that's another thing I'd love to press is really think about what you're donating and make sure you look at it before you just pull it out of your cupboards.
I can't believe that. You said 300 pounds?
Yes, and that was actually, so that was only a little bit worse than my senior year. That was, I think, 250.
Wow.
250 pounds. Oh, and this is something with the whole pound thing that may be helpful. As a general rule, unless you have giant scales lying around, we didn't. It's generally regarded that one box or one can is about 1 pound of food. Obviously, you have some little cans, but you also have some really big ones, so it evens out in a food drive situation. So if you're trying to come up with general poundage and don't have a giant scale you can drag everything to, count how much stuff you have, and that's about how much food you're donating.
Great. Can you remind us of what that scale is again?
Okay, so 1 can or 1 box is 1 pound, roughly, because you might have those really little, like, sardine cans. Those don't weigh a pound. But what Will's got in his hand, that I think it's juice, that's way more than 1 pound. So it evens itself out over a really big donation. So 1 can, 1 box, that's 1 pound.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. And what are your plans now?
Okay, so I'm no longer a senior in high school. I'm so used to saying that. I'm a freshman in college now at American University. I live here in Washington, D.C., and now I run something called the Means Database. It stands for Matching Access and Need for Stability, and we actually work with food banks and food pantries to help them talk about all these big donations and spread them out so we don't have to throw out 400 pounds of food because it expired, because we can get rid of it in time.
That's fantastic, and we're very happy to have you here in Washington, D.C.
I'm very happy to be here.
Now we have a question for Will. And Will, we want to know what your favorite food drive has been.
The one that I mentioned earlier, the one where all the neighborhoods in the city that summer were competing in, that was my favorite. We had several events, ice cream social, July 4th parade. It was awesome. It was epic. The mayor actually was the challenger for it. They challenged all the different neighborhoods and districts of the city of Brayer, Fort Worth. It was awesome. It was fun.
That's pretty impressive to get the mayor there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We had a question from a participant that asked, have you guys ever had a food drive and didn't have any food donated? Can anyone answer that question?
What did you do?
And what did you do?
I can talk a little on this. I don't think we never had one where truly nothing got donated. We had ones where the start was slow and we were really nervous. What worked there ultimately was just lots of promotion, and Will is a friend of mine. I absolutely adore Will Lourcey, and he spoke really well. He's got some great ideas on how to really engage and really promote these types of activities. But what worked for us ultimately was just making sure we got it in front of our fellow students and that it was in the announcements and over the water fountains and in the emails and on the school Twitter, and just kind of hitting that home enough times that kids sort of remembered, like, oh, hey, I need to donate. And we actually found that having a shorter window of time, so instead of a 3-week food drive, a 1-week food drive, the results were way better because students didn't just say, oh, but I'll do it later, oh, but I'll do it later. If they only have a short amount of time to do it, they're more likely to do it sooner and do it at all.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add, I'd just like to add that, yeah, the timing is really key. You don't want to make it be too short or too long. You don't want to give people too much time, but the promotion is just really key. I think one key way to get guaranteed success is to talk to your local grocery stores and restaurants that are going to throw out food that's not necessarily bad but is just going to waste, and get the ball rolling, and so that you can already say, I've got 50 pounds, I've got 100 pounds already lined up. Can your class match that? And really build on guaranteed success. But the promotion part's really key, I think, and timing it in a way that it'll fall with something, so people aren't really busy with something else, or right after Easter when people have all of this meals that they've bought things for and might have leftovers, things like that. Just really thinking it through beforehand and scheduling it well is pretty key.
That's a great tip too, Julia. Thank you so much. And actually, Julia, we have another question for you. Someone online works with 10 to 18-year-old kids, and we're wondering how they can participate in Hunger and Homelessness Week.
Sure. Well, there's lots of ways. We have a manual up on our website that breaks down all different ways that people like to be involved. Sometimes it's an event called One Night Without a Home, where you go out and for any amount of time overnight try to sleep outside in November and kind of get a sense of what people are going through. Our favorite way for people to participate is for them to talk with people who are living in poverty, who've experienced homelessness or hunger, and really get a first-hand education about what it's like, and really break through stereotypes and get to know the people, because it really can happen to anyone at any time in your life, whether you're a child or an adult, whether you were wealthy or poor growing up. And so we love events that bring panelists to come in and speak about their experiences, or in which you can simulate poverty. The Oxfam has a hunger banquet, which is a really popular event. So kind of all these events are outlined in how you set them up in our manual online, as well as some other special events. But if you go to our website, that's all available there.
Julia, if I may, I'd love to jump off of that. She just mentioned an Oxfam Hunger Banquet. I actually work with Oxfam too, and that's a really, I should have thought to bring this up earlier, that's a really great event, not only for raising awareness around hunger and poverty, but you can actually use it to raise food too. It's basically a simulation where people kind of see how food is broken up in the world, and it really hits home how many people go hungry. And you can actually, like Will said, use cans as an admission. And this was not one I ran, but I saw run by a friend in another community, and they were able to raise 500 cans of food in one night. So that's another strategy that can be really effective and is a little bit off the beaten path, but certainly very effective.
Wonderful, great tip. And we will include all of those links that you guys just mentioned on the follow-up email to all the participants today too. Finally, I want to reintroduce Lauren Brayer of Sodexo Foundation to talk a little bit about opportunities that people can take advantage of now that they've heard all of this fantastic information. Lauren?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So a great opportunity for any students, young people ages 5 through 25 who are actually doing community service work in their hometowns to fight hunger here in the U.S. If they're doing that work, we offer a scholarship for a $5,000 grant for their education, as well as a matching $5,000 grant so they can give to their hunger charity of choice. And that application period is open now through December 5th. So if you know someone, or if you are a student who's doing these great, amazing things in your community, please consider applying. I know you're probably so humble about your work, but it's really a great opportunity to raise awareness not only about your work, but the issue of hunger and what you're doing to help fight that and solve that problem in America. So I encourage you guys to spread the word on social media. We're using hashtag Get5Give5. And then visit our website at sodexofoundation.org to learn more about the scholarship. And there's a link on there for you to apply directly as well.